Freedom of speech is the greatest human right, God-given, ever recognized by a government, if only because it offers us a bridge to our differences, which can be expressed politely or impolitely, because it's far better than the alternative, which is violence, bloodshed, and war. And then you see the First Amendment protecting what is truly vile hate speech.
Then they will know what kind of people these are. Why every so many 100 years the Zionists get slaughtered? Because Hitler knew how to deal with these people.
And I'm going to sit here and tell you that I think it's to the benefit of society to have such speech protected so that we understand how hateful and vile some people are, so that we can address the problem rather than allowing the poison to fester and silently spread. Because at least this gives you a way to judge the health of your society as to where you are. And maybe you can deal with it, though at this point, frankly, I doubt the resolve of the West, because unfortunately, most politicos are more worried about being declared racist by the New York Times or the Guardian for stating that the values and goals of Islamists are antithetical to the liberal values that safeguard the rights of humanity originally birthed in England in the signing of the Magna Carta and expanded dramatically by the US Constitution. The Democrats' attempt to erode our free speech is plainly demonstrated, for example, in the Twitter files, which is but one of numerous references that I could provide. And this goal of censoring speech was one of the big reasons that I left the party. It was the red line. I said, you dare not cross it. And now I'm left in a quandary, because some are arguing that our strict adherence to the principles outlined in the First Amendment are being levered by US adversaries in an attempt to destroy and unwind our great country. The destruction of the minds of young people and those on the left is evident from not being able to define what a woman is.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition? No,
Yeah,
I can't.
you can't?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of
To cheering for the murders and the beheadings of Israeli babies at the hands of Hamas, a terrorist organization.
Are you people dead? Are you people dead? Yes. Oh, good. Good. Oh, they dead. Oh, good.
And today, an attack in 2001 upon the United States using hijacked airplanes that killed 3,000 Americans by hateful, hardcore Salafi Islamists that turned the world upside down. An act of pure, unadulterated evil is being defended by young leftists as justified.
Is just insane, because this letter is so well written and so reasonably structured in an argument. Like, you got to present your findings, you got to state your cause, all that. Like, everything he said was valid.
This morning I read Letter to America, which is Osama bin Laden's letter to America explaining why he attacked Americans. And I am ashamed to say that I not only have never read this letter, but I didn't even know this letter existed. It's wild, and everyone should read it. If you haven't read it yet, read it.
This is stage 4 brain cancer brought on by the ever metastasizing woke mind virus that is burning our society down. It's the same mindset that had leftists cheering the destruction of cities in 2020 during the Summer of Love, that favor criminals arrested for violence being released without any conditions or bail, but not caring one iota for the deaths of innocents when 20 minutes later the criminals commit more heinous acts. The mindset which demands enhanced penalties for one side of the political aisle, like a prison sentence for a free speech crime in quotes, committed in 2016 by Douglas Mackey, exercising his First Amendment right to mock Hillary Clinton constituents by encouraging to vote by text, while allowing the same satire encouraging Trump supporters to do the same, both of which are 100% protected by the First Amendment, or the 22 years given to Proud Boy Enrique Tarrio, who wasn't even at the Capitol riot, while having numerous Democrat prosecutors petitioning a judge for leniency for a BLM rioter / lawyer who threw a firebomb into a police car in New York City, and the cheering of the woke when they got 1 year for this crime. The weaponized justice system of the United States is a result of leftism. Now, most people are unaware of this, but a defecting KGB agent by the name of Yuri Bezmenov explained the Soviet plan for subverting America and thus being able to win without firing a shot, which is the goal outlined long ago by Sun Tzu in his book, The Art of War, illustrated by the following quote: "To fight and conquer in all our battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting." Now, before I dive into how exactly the Chinese are using the penetration of their TikTok app to achieve this aim, let me briefly summarize the generational plan to subvert America as outlined by Bezmenov. It was focused on the gradual erosion of public trust in institutions and the spread of disinformation to undermine American society from within. Stage 1, demoralization. The first stage of the plan was to demoralize the American populace by systemically creating social unrest and economic instability. This involved promoting social divisions, encouraging distrust of government and authority figures, and exacerbating existing societal issues. The goal was to sow seeds of doubt and disillusionment, making the population more susceptible to subsequent stages of the plan. Stage 2, destabilization. The second stage was focused on destabilizing American society by exploiting existing tensions and encouraging further conflict. This involved supporting extremist groups like BLM, which, by the way, China actively funded, and fomenting unrest among various social and political factions, including incitement to violence and chaos. The aim was to create an atmosphere of uncertainty and fear, further weakening the foundations of America. Stage 3, crisis. The third stage sought to create a crisis situation that would force the United States to make drastic decisions. This could involve economic collapse, like monetizing the debt, which might be the only option that we have, natural disasters, or even foreign military interventions. Ukraine, Israel, possibly Taiwan. The goal was to exploit the crisis to undermine American confidence and push the country towards more authoritarian and centralized system of government. This, of course, is being resisted by the likes of Ron DeSantis, Kristi Noem, and the red states, whereas in the blue states, they want to suck up all the power for themselves and decide exactly what you're allowed to do, like California during COVID. Stage 4, and as I go through this, you might think that we're already here, normalization. The final stage aimed to normalize the new communist-aligned system of governance. This involved suppressing dissent, aka Men are not women. You get pummeled. You say anything out of line at work. You get fired. To question Black Lives Matter is a cancelable offense. Controlling the media? Of course, that's what's going on right now. That's why on all the leftist newspapers, media outlets, you'll see the same headline and the rewriting of history to justify the changes, like the 1619 Project from the New York Times, from going in and stealth editing Stacey Abrams' opinion piece in the USA Today. And we're seeing that in other places. The destruction of statues of the founders, hauling off Thomas Jefferson statue in New York City and putting it on ice. The goal was to establish a new social order that would be more susceptible to Soviet influence and control. The insidious nature of ideological subversion is manifesting wildly today. China merely took the Soviet strategy and is doing all they can to destroy America with, of course, the help of good old George Soros. That includes, of course, the funding of Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Releasing the COVID virus around the world, at minimum, they allowed the virus to spread from Wuhan as they shut down domestic air travel from Wuhan, but allowed international air travel to remain open because, hey, what else can be said? Let's spread this around and cause worldwide misery. We don't want to be the only ones. China is also supplying drug cartels in Mexico with the precursors of fentanyl, which resulted in 70,601 overdose deaths reported in 2021. And really, let's call them what they are, which is murders, the poisoning of not only the bodies of Americans, but the minds as well. And I come back to the issue of free speech in the First Amendment. Should Americans be prevented from uttering their thoughts in the United States of America? I say no, other than what is already prohibited by law, which is the incitement to immediate violence, child porn, intentional slander, whatever few exceptions are carved out by the Supreme Court of the United States. But what about a foreign adversary with the aim of destroying America? You see, in China, what TikTok feeds the youth advances the values of the nation and the well-being and prosperity of China, or at least the CCP. Rather than bringing you division, TikTok in China advocates mathematics, engineering, physical exercise, is pro-family, and definitely pro-China in terms of their sentiments. Unfortunately for America, here in the USA, the TikTok algorithm favors the confusion of American youth sexually.
I identify as a female, then when my balls and penis disappear.
Promoting the transgender agenda, police brutality, the favoring of pro-Hamas narratives, and today amplifying the idea that Osama bin Laden might have been a decent dude, and America was responsible for the murderous attacks on 9/11 that took down the World Trade Centers and murdered 3,000 Americans. To me, TikTok is clearly a weapon meant to subvert American values, as strategized by Sun Tzu and outlined by Bezmenov. Banning TikTok is not suppressing an individual American of having their voice heard. It is preventing the intentional poisoning of American minds. And it goes against my innate instinct to violently lash out against anybody who's trying to weaken the First Amendment in our great country. But China, unfortunately, does not play by our rules, and there is no counterweight to TikTok within the borders of China because they allow exactly 0 of our social media apps within its borders. Therefore, it's making it asymmetric warfare. And again, going against my instinct to protect the First Amendment with every muscle fiber that I have, it is my belief that banning TikTok is necessary. And it won't happen because leftist politicians know that it moves the youth into their direction, as China, no doubt, desires. And almost all politicians are short-sighted and only care about being reelected rather than what is best for America as a whole. And as long as TikTok continues to be broadcast through America, the drumbeat of ideological subversion continues. And the lack of kinetic energy being expended makes the warfare all the more pernicious. It's time to prevent TikTok from confusing and destroying American minds, to stop it from spreading the woke mind virus, which subverts all of American values. And therefore, I call for a ban on TikTok because it is clearly a weapon, as demonstrated by the vastly different algorithmic feeds given to Chinese citizens versus America. I call for a ban on TikTok because this is war, and I wish to be pragmatic. It would be much harder for me to make this call if this was an American entity and able to be pressured by American citizens, but it's not. And frankly, I don't want these voices who think that bin Laden was justified in the murder of 3,000 Americans and the following wars that were created because of it to be amplified. Let me know what you think in the comment section.